It was a bright, sunny afternoon, the kind where the sky looks like a big, blue blanket with no clouds anywhere. Flight 247 was getting ready to take off, and people were walking up the little stairs into the plane. To most people, it seemed like just another normal day. Nothing special, nothing exciting, just a regular flight with regular people going to regular places. Or so they thought. Jamal Carter was one of those people stepping onto the plane. He had a ticket in his hand, crumpled a little from being in his pocket all day. His face had a big, friendly smile, the kind that makes you feel like everything's okay. Jamal looked like any other guy you might see walking around. He had a brown jacket, jeans, and a backpack slung over one shoulder. To everyone else, he was just a regular person heading home after a long, tiring week. Maybe he'd been working hard at a job, or maybe he'd been visiting family. Nobody asked, and nobody cared. But here's the thing, Jamal wasn't just a regular guy. Nope. He had a secret. A big, juicy secret that nobody on this plane knew about. Not the old lady with the knitting needles, not the kid playing games on his tablet, not even the pilot up front steering the plane. This secret was so big, it was like a hidden treasure chest waiting to pop open and surprise everyone. And when it did, oh boy, it was going to turn this whole flight upside down like flipping a pancake in the air. The plane was loud and busy as Jamal walked down the skinny aisle. People were everywhere, bumping into each other and talking all at once. Babies were crying, why because they didn't want to sit still. Moms and dads were trying to shove big suitcases into the little cubbies above the seats, those overhead bins that always seem too small. Push it harder, one guy grunted to his wife as they wrestled with a giant red bag. Another lady was counting her kids, 1, 2, 3, where's Timmy? Timmy, it turned out, was already sitting down, eating a sticky candy and getting it all over his shirt. It was a mess, but Jamal didn't mind. He just kept walking, his sneakers squeaking a little on the floor, until he found his seat, 12B. That's the one right by the window in row 12. Perfect. He loved window seats because he could look out and see the clouds zoom by once the plane took off. He slid into his spot, plopped his backpack on the floor, and let out a happy sigh. Finally, he said to himself, super quiet so no one heard. Time to relax. He leaned back, stretching his legs as much as he could in the tiny space. His plan was simple: look out the window, maybe take a nap, and enjoy the ride home. The week had been long, and he was tired. All he wanted was some peace and quiet. He even pulled out a little bag of pretzels from his backpack, his favorite snack to munch on while the plane got ready to fly. Everything seemed perfect. Normal. Calm. But guess what? Things weren't going to stay calm for long. Nope, not even close. Trouble was already sneaking up on Jamal, and it wasn't quiet about it. This trouble was loud, bossy, and wearing a blue uniform that all the flight attendants wore. It had a shiny name tag pinned to its chest, and that tag said Karen in big, bold letters. Karen wasn't just any flight attendant. Oh no. She was the kind of person who walked around like she was in charge of everything: the plane, the people, even the sky outside. Her shoes clicked on the floor as she marched up and down the aisle, her eyes darting around, looking for anything she didn't like. She had a frown on her face, like she'd just bitten into a sour lemon. Maybe she didn't like her job, or maybe she woke up grumpy that morning. Who knows? But one thing was clear: Karen was ready to pick a fight, and she was heading straight for Jamal. Jamal didn't see her coming at first. He was too busy looking out the window, watching the workers outside load bags onto the plane. Big carts rolled by, beep beep beeping as they moved. The sun was shining on the wings of the plane, making them sparkle like silver. Jamal smiled again, thinking about how nice it would be to be home soon. He didn't have a clue that trouble was about to crash into his peaceful little moment like a runaway shopping cart. The plane kept buzzing around him. Across the aisle, a man in a goofy hat was trying to read a book, but the pages kept flapping shut because the air vents were blowing too hard. Ugh, he grumbled, slapping the book closed. 2 rows up, a girl with pigtails was kicking the back of someone's seat, thump, 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 until the guy in front turned around and said, "Hey, cut it out." She just giggled and kept kicking. It was noisy, it was messy, and it was all totally normal for a plane getting ready to fly. But then, something not so normal happened. Karen stopped moving. She planted her feet right next to row 12, her shadow falling over Jamal like a big, dark cloud. He didn't notice at first he was still staring out the window, munching on a pretzel. Crunch, crunch, crunch. But then he felt it. That weird feeling you get when someone's staring at you. He turned his head, just a little, and there she was, Karen, glaring down at him like he'd done something awful. Jamal blinked. Hi, he said, super polite, because that's just how he was. He didn't know why she was looking at him like that. Maybe she wanted to ask him something? Maybe his backpack was in the way? He glanced at it. Not, it was tucked under the seat, nice and neat. So what was her problem? Karen didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, arms crossed, her frown getting deeper and deeper. The other passengers didn't notice yet, they were too busy with their own stuff. But Jamal could feel the air change. It wasn't relaxed anymore. It was tense, like the moment before a balloon pops. Something was coming, and it wasn't good. Now, let's pause for a second. Imagine you were Jamal, sitting there all happy with your pretzels, and then someone starts staring at you like you're a troublemaker. What would you do if someone started yelling at you for no reason? Would you yell back? Stay quiet? Run away? I'm super curious. Tell me what you think in the comments below. I bet you've got some cool ideas. Back to the story. Jamal didn't have time to figure out what was wrong, because Karen was about to open her mouth, and when she did, everything was going to change. His secret, the one nobody knew about, was still safe for now. But not for long. Trouble had found him, and it was wearing a name tag. The plane was still on the ground, the engines humming softly, but this flight was already taking off in a whole different way. See, Jamal wasn't just heading home. He wasn't just some guy with a ticket and a smile. He was someone special, someone with a job nobody expected. And Karen? She was about to make the biggest mistake of her day. The kind of mistake that makes your jaw drop and your eyes go wide. But we're not there yet. Oh no, we're just getting started. The plane kept buzzing. The babies kept crying. The suitcases kept getting shoved into bins. And Jamal sat there, totally clueless that his quiet little trip was about to turn into a big, loud adventure. Karen's shadow loomed over him, her shoes tapping the floor like she was counting down to something. Tap, tap, tap. What was she going to say? Why was she so mad? And what was Jamal's secret that could flip this whole flight upside down? Stick with me, because this is where it gets good. The sun was still shining outside, the plane was still waiting to fly, and Jamal was still smiling, at least for now. But trouble was ready to pounce, and when it did, nobody would see it coming. Not Karen, not the passengers, not even you unless you keep reading. So what do you think so far? Is Jamal's secret something cool? Something sneaky? Something wild? I've got a hunch you're already guessing. Drop your ideas below, and let's see who gets closest to the truth. Oh, and tell me where you're reading from today, I'd love to know. Ready for more? Good, because this story's just warming up. The plane was still sitting on the ground, engines humming like a big, sleepy cat. People were settling into their seats, buckling their seat belts with little clicks, and chatting about where they were going. Everything seemed normal, well, almost everything. Because right then, Karen, the flight attendant, was about to stir up a big mess. And poor Jamal? He was right in the middle of it. Karen wasn't walking down the aisle like a regular person. Oh no. She stormed down it, like she was a superhero charging into battle, or maybe a grumpy teacher who just caught someone chewing gum in class. Her blue uniform swished as she moved, and her shoes made loud clack 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 sounds on the floor. She looked like she owned the whole plane, like she was the boss of everything and everyone. Her face was scrunched up tight, her lips pressed into a thin line, and her eyes were sharp, darting around like she was hunting for trouble. And guess where she stopped? Right at Jamal's row 12. She planted her feet like she was a tree rooted to the spot, and her shadow fell over Jamal's seat. He was still sitting by the window in 12B, looking out at the sunny day, totally calm. His backpack was under his seat, his pretzels were in his lap, and he had no idea what was coming. But Karen? She had her eyes locked on him, and they were narrowing, getting smaller and meaner, like a cat about to pounce on a mouse. "Sir," she said, her voice sharp and loud, "you're in the wrong seat." She didn't whisper it? Nope, she snapped it out so everyone around could hear. Her words cut through the air like a loud bell ringing in a quiet room. People stopped what they were doing. A guy folding his jacket looked up. A mom buckling her kid's seat belt froze. Even the little girl with pigtails 2 rows up stopped kicking the seat thump, thump, and turned her head to see what was happening. Jamal blinked, surprised. He tilted his head and looked at Karen, his eyebrows scrunching together in a tiny frown. Huh, he said, super calm, like he wasn't worried at all. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his ticket, and held it up for her to see. It was a little crumpled, but the writing was clear. This says 12B, he told her, pointing at the numbers with his finger. His voice was soft, friendly even, like he was just trying to help her understand. But Karen? She didn't even look at the ticket. Not really. She glanced at it for half a second, then flicked her eyes back to Jamal, like the ticket didn't matter one bit. I don't care what it says, she barked, her voice getting louder and grumpier. You need to move now. She crossed her arms over her chest, her shiny name tag glinting under the plane's lights, and she stared at Jamal like he was a naughty kid who just spilled juice all over her favorite rug. Whoa. That was harsh. Jamal's frown got a little deeper, but he didn't jump up or yell back. He just sat there, holding his ticket, looking at her like he was trying to figure out why she was so mad. Around him, the plane started to buzz with whispers. Heads turned. Eyes peeked over seats. A lady sitting across the aisle, wearing a big purple scarf, leaned over to her husband and muttered, "She's being ridiculous." Her husband nodded, his glasses slipping down his nose. "Totally," he whispered back, sneaking a glance at Karen. Other people were starting to notice too. A guy with a goofy hat 2 rows back peeked over his book, his eyebrows shooting up like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. A kid with a sticky candy stuck to his shirt tugged his mom's sleeve and said, "Mom, why's she yelling?" His mom shushed him, but she was watching too, her mouth open a little. The plane wasn't so noisy anymore, everyone was too busy listening to Karen and Jamal. Karen didn't care that people were staring. Nope. She just kept going. Her voice got even louder, booming over the hum of the engines. She pointed her finger right at Jamal, jabbing it through the air like it was a sword. "People like you always think they can do whatever they want," she shouted, her face turning a little red. Ouch. That hurt. Those words stung like a bee sting on a sunny day. People like you. What did she mean by that? Was it because Jamal was sitting by the window? Because he had a backpack? Or something else? The lady in the purple scarf gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Her husband whispered, "Did she really just say that?" The kid with the candy stopped chewing, his eyes big and round. Even the girl with pigtails stopped giggling and stared. Jamal's face changed. His jaw tightened, like he was clenching his teeth together hard. His friendly smile was gone now, replaced by a look that said he was annoyed, really annoyed. But he still didn't yell. He didn't jump up or wave his arms or call her names. Nope. He just sat there, super still, his eyes locked on Karen. Watching her. Waiting. His fingers tapped the armrest once, twice, then stopped. Something about the way he looked at her made you think, maybe he wasn't as ordinary as he seemed. Karen didn't notice that, though. She was too busy being loud. She tossed her head back, her ponytail bouncing, and kept talking like she was the queen of the plane. "I've been doing this job for years," she said, her voice all high and mighty. "I know how this works. You don't get to argue with me." She jabbed her finger again, so close it almost poked Jamal's nose. "Move. Now. Or I'll get someone to make you move." The whispers got louder. "She's so mean," a teenage girl with headphones muttered to her friend. Her friend nodded, pulling one headphone off to listen better. "Yeah, he didn't even do anything." The man with the goofy hat shook his head, flipping a page in his book but not reading it, he was too busy watching. The lady in the purple scarf turned to her husband again and said, "She's making a big deal out of nothing. Poor guy." Jamal stayed cool. Super cool. Like ice cream on a hot day. He lowered his ticket slowly, resting it on his lap, and looked up at Karen. "I'm in 12B, he said again, his voice still calm but a little firmer now, like he was tired of repeating himself. "Check it if you want." He held the ticket out again, waiting for her to take it. But Karen didn't take it. She huffed, a big, loud puff of air, and rolled her eyes so hard you could almost hear them squeak. I don't need to check it, she snapped. I know where people belong. Get up. She stepped closer, her shoe bumping the edge of Jamal's seat, like she was trying to scare him into moving. Her hands went to her hips, and she glared down at him, waiting for him to obey. The plane was quiet now, too quiet. Even the babies stopped crying, like they knew something big was happening. Everyone was watching Jamal and Karen, holding their breath. What was he going to do? Was he going to get up? Yell? Fight back? The air felt heavy, like a storm was about to break loose right there in row 12. Jamal's eyes narrowed just a tiny bit. He leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms over his chest. He didn't move. Not an inch. I'm staying, he said, his voice low but strong, like a rock that wouldn't budge. This is my seat. Karen's face went from red to super red, like a tomato about to burst. Excuse me, she shouted, so loud it echoed off the plane walls. You don't tell me what to do. She stomped her foot clack, and spun around, looking for someone to back her up. Where's Mike? Mike, she yelled, calling for another flight attendant. Her ponytail whipped side to side as she turned her head, searching the aisle. People were whispering more now, their voices like a soft hum. She's crazy, the teenage girl said, shaking her head. He's not even being rude, her friend agreed. The man with the book muttered, this is nuts, under his breath. The lady in the purple scarf leaned forward, her scarf slipping a little. I hope he doesn't move, she said quietly. She's wrong. Jamal didn't say another word. He just sat there, his jaw still tight, his arms still crossed. His ticket was on his lap, crumpled but clear 12B. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't fighting, but he wasn't giving up either. Something about him felt different. Strong. Like he knew something Karen didn't. Like he had a trick up his sleeve, waiting for the right moment to show it. Karen didn't see that. She was too mad, too busy stomping and shouting. She waved her arms, her sleeves flapping, and kept going. This is my plane, she said, like she'd built it herself. I decide who sits where. You're not special. She pointed at Jamal again, her finger shaking a little now, like she was so mad she couldn't keep it still. But Jamal? He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He just watched her, his eyes steady and calm. And that little smirk, the one from earlier, was starting to creep back onto his face. Just a tiny curve at the corner of his mouth. What was he thinking? What did he know that Karen didn't? Something told me this guy wasn't as ordinary as he looked. Not even close. The tension was thick, like fog you could cut with a spoon. Everyone was waiting, passengers, Karen, even me, telling you the story. What was going to happen next? Would Jamal move? Would Karen win? Or was something bigger about to happen, something that would make everyone's eyes go wide? Stick around, because this is just the start of the storm. The plane felt like a pot of water about to boil over. Karen was still standing there, huffing and puffing like a dragon ready to breathe fire. Her face was so red now it looked like she'd been sitting in the sun too long. She was mad, really, really mad, and she wasn't hiding it. Mike, she yelled again, her voice bouncing around the plane like a rubber ball. She spun around so fast her ponytail almost hit the lady in the purple scarf sitting across the aisle. Jamal didn't move. Not a bit. He was like a statue, sitting in seat 12B with his arms crossed and his ticket resting on his lap. That tiny smirk on his face was still there, growing just a little bigger, like he was starting to enjoy this. But he didn't say anything, not yet. He just watched Karen, his eyes following her every move, calm and steady, like a cat watching a bird hop around. The passengers couldn't look away. It was like a show, and they all had front row seats. The teenage girl with the headphones pulled them off completely now, her mouth open like she was watching a movie. This is wild, she whispered to her friend, who nodded fast. Yeah, she's losing it. The man with the goofy hat put his book down on his lap, not even pretending to read anymore. He leaned forward a little, resting his chin on his hand, like he didn't want to miss a single second. The lady in the purple scarf was whispering to her husband again. She's so rude, she said, shaking her head. That poor guy didn't do anything wrong. Her husband pushed his glasses up his nose and nodded. She's making a fool of herself, he muttered back. Even the kid with the sticky candy was staring, his mouth full of gum, his eyes big like saucers. Mom, is she gonna yell forever? He asked. His mom shushed him again, but she didn't look away either. Karen didn't care who was watching. Nope. She was too busy being the loudest person on the plane. She turned back to Jamal, her hands on her hips, and leaned down so her face was closer to his. You think you're smart, huh? She said, her voice sharp like a knife. Sitting there like you own this seat? Well, you don't. I'm in charge here, and I say you move. Jamal tilted his head a little, like he was thinking about what she said. But he still didn't budge. My ticket says 12B, he repeated, slow and clear, like he was talking to a little kid who didn't get it. He tapped the ticket with his finger tap, tap, and held it up again. You can look at it? It's right here. Karen's eyes flashed, like lightning in a storm. She snatched the ticket out of his hand snatch, and held it up like it was a piece of trash. She squinted at it, her lips moving a little like she was reading, but you could tell she didn't really care what it said. This doesn't mean anything, she snapped, tossing it back at him. The ticket fluttered down and landed on his lap, all crumpled up now. I know where people belong, and you don't belong here. That made the whispers turn into gasps. Oh no, she didn't, the teenage girl said, her voice loud enough that Karen could have heard if she wasn't so busy yelling. Her friend giggled nervously. She's gonna get in trouble, she whispered back. The lady in the purple scarf clutched her scarf tighter, her eyes wide. That's awful, she said to her husband. She can't talk to him like that. Her husband nodded again, his face all serious. She's digging a hole, he said quietly. Jamal caught the ticket before it slid off his lap. He smoothed it out with his hands, nice and slow, like he had all the time in the world. Then he looked up at Karen, his eyes steady. I'm not moving, he said, his voice still calm but a little louder now, like he wanted everyone to hear. This is my seat. You're wrong. Karen's mouth dropped open, like she couldn't believe he just said that. Wrong, she shouted, so loud the windows almost shook. I'm not wrong. You're wrong. You don't tell me what to do. She stomped her foot again, clack, and spun around, looking down the aisle. Mike. Where are you? I need backup, she yelled, waving her arms like she was trying to flag down a car. The plane was buzzing now, like a beehive that just got poked. People were leaning out of their seats, craning their necks to see what would happen next. The kid with the candy started chewing again, chomp chomp, his eyes bouncing between Karen and Jamal. The girl with pigtails giggled and whispered to her mom, she's funny. Her mom frowned and said, SHH, this isn't funny. It's mean. And then Mike showed up. He was another flight attendant, a tall guy with messy brown hair and a blue uniform like Karen's. He walked down the aisle, looking confused, his hands in his pockets. What's going on? He asked, stopping next to Karen. His voice was soft, like he wasn't sure he wanted to be there. Karen spun around so fast she almost bumped into him. This guy, she said, pointing at Jamal like he was a monster. He's in the wrong seat, and he won't move. He's causing trouble. She crossed her arms again, glaring at Mike like she expected him to fix everything right that second. Mike scratched his head, looking from Karen to Jamal. Okay, let me see, he said. He stepped closer to Jamal, leaning down a little. Hey, man, can I check your ticket? He asked, way nicer than Karen had. Jamal nodded and handed it over, still calm as ever. Mike took it, smoothed it out, and read it. Huh, he said, scratching his head again. It says 12B. That's this seat, right? Karen's face twisted up like she'd just bitten a lemon. What? She snapped, grabbing the ticket from Mike's hand. She held it up to her face, so close her nose almost touched it, and stared at it hard. No way, she muttered. This can't be right. She flipped it over, like there might be a secret message on the back, then flipped it again. He's lying, she said, throwing it back at Jamal. It hit his chest and fell to the floor this time. Mike frowned. Karen, it looks legit, he said, bending down to pick up the ticket. He handed it back to Jamal with a little shrug, like he was saying sorry without words. I think he's in the right seat. Karen's eyes went huge, like two big balloons. Are you kidding me? She shouted, turning on Mike now. You're taking his side. I've been here longer than you. I know how this works. She stomped her foot again, clack, and pointed at Jamal. He doesn't belong here. Get him out. The passengers couldn't believe it. The teenage girl whispered, she's flipping out. Her friend nodded, her headphones dangling around her neck. Totally unhinged, she said. The man with the goofy hat chuckled quietly, shaking his head. She's done for, he muttered. The lady in the purple scarf clutched her husband's arm. She's so unfair, she said. He's not even fighting back. And Jamal? He didn't fight back, not with yelling, anyway. He took the ticket from Mike, smoothed it out again, and tucked it into his pocket. Then he leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms again. That smirk was bigger now, just a little, like he knew something big was coming. He didn't say a word, but his eyes stayed on Karen, watching her like a hawk watches a mouse. Mike looked stuck. He glanced at Jamal, then at Karen, then back at Jamal. I don't know, Karen, he said, his voice all wobbly. The ticket says 12B. Maybe we should. No. Karen cut him off, her voice loud enough to wake up a sleeping dog. No maybes. He's moving, or I'm calling the captain. She spun around again, her ponytail whipping through the air, and marched toward the front of the plane. This isn't over, she yelled over her shoulder, her shoes clacking all the way. The plane went quiet again, but only for a second. Then the whispers exploded. She's nuts, the teenage girl said, laughing a little. Yeah, she's gonna get fired, her friend added. The man with the book nodded to himself, like he agreed. The lady in the purple scarf turned to her husband. She's wrong, right? She asked. He nodded. Oh yeah. Big time. Jamal didn't say anything. He just sat there, his smirk growing, his jaw still tight. He tapped his fingers on the armrest, tap, 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 like he was counting down to something. Karen was gone for now, stomping up to the front, but the tension wasn't. It hung in the air, thick and heavy, like a storm cloud ready to burst. What was she going to do? What was Jamal waiting for? Something told me this wasn't the end, not even close. The passengers kept watching, waiting, whispering. The kid with the candy asked, Mom, is he in trouble? His mom shook her head. No, honey. She is. And that little smirk on Jamal's face? It said she was right. Trouble was brewing, and it was about to get wild. The plane wasn't going anywhere. Nope. It was stuck on the tarmac, that's the big, flat area where planes wait before they take off. The engines were humming softly, like a big fan on a hot day, but the plane didn't move an inch. Why? Because Karen was still ranting, making a big fuss about Jamal, and it was holding everything up. People were starting to get grumpy, shifting in their seats and looking out the windows, wondering when they'd finally fly. Karen was like a storm blowing through the plane. She wasn't done yelling, not even close. She waved her arms and called over another flight attendant, a guy named Mike. Mike was tall and skinny, with messy brown hair that stuck up a little, like he'd just rolled out of bed. He shuffled down the aisle, looking nervous, like he didn't want to get caught in Karen's tornado. What's going on? He asked, his voice quiet and unsure. Karen spun around and pointed at Jamal, her finger jabbing the air like a stick poking a beehive. He won't listen, she huffed, her face all red and sweaty now. She crossed her arms and glared at Mike, like it was his job to fix everything. He's in the wrong seat, and he's being rude about it, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her ponytail bounced as she talked, swinging back and forth like a jump rope. Jamal was still sitting in 12B, right by the window. He didn't look like a criminal to me. Nope. He looked calm, with his hands resting on his lap and his backpack tucked under the seat. But Karen was acting like he'd just robbed a candy store. Mike stepped closer, bending down a little to talk to Jamal. Can I see your ticket, man? He asked, scratching his head with one hand. He sounded nice, way nicer than Karen. Jamal nodded and pulled the ticket out of his pocket. It was crumpled and wrinkled, but you could still see the numbers 12B. He handed it to Mike without a word, just watching him with those steady, quiet eyes. Mike took the ticket, held it up to the light, and squinted at it. He said, scratching his head again. Karen, it looks fine to me. He turned the ticket over, then back, like he was double-checking. Yeah, it says 12B. That's this seat. Karen's eyes got big, like two round balloons about to pop. What? She shouted, stomping her foot clack, on the floor. No way. That's not right. She snatched the ticket from Mike's hand and held it up to her face, so close her nose almost bumped it. She stared at it hard, her lips moving like she was whispering to herself. This can't be real, she muttered. Then she threw it back at Jamal, like it was a piece of junk. It floated down and landed on his lap. Mike shrugged, his shoulders going up and down like he didn't know what to do. I don't know, Karen, he said, his voice all wobbly. It looks like he's in the right spot. He stuffed his hands in his pockets and took a tiny step back, like he didn't want to get yelled at next. But Karen? She wasn't backing down. Nope. Not even a little. She puffed out her chest, like a big angry bird, and shook her head so hard her ponytail flew side to side. No, 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 she yelled. He's causing trouble, and I'm not letting this go. She turned around fast, her shoes clacking loud on the floor, and marched straight to the front of the plane. Everyone watched her go, their mouths open, their eyes wide. And then get this, she grabbed the intercom. You know, that little microphone thing flight attendants use to talk to the whole plane? She yanked it off its hook, pressed the button, and started talking. Her voice boomed out of the speakers, loud and scratchy, filling every corner of the plane. Attention, everyone, she said, sounding like a teacher scolding a class. We've got a passenger causing trouble in row 12. Sit tight while we handle it. Oh man, that did it. The plane erupted, well, not with explosions, but with noise. People groaned, long and loud, like they were tired of waiting. Ugh, went a guy in a red shirt a few rows up, throwing his hands in the air. Come on, moaned a lady with glasses, slumping back in her seat. And then, from way in the back, a kid's voice shouted, hurry up already. Everyone heard it, and a few people even laughed, but most were just mad. The lady in the purple scarf across from Jamal shook her head. This is silly, she whispered to her husband. He's not causing trouble, she is. Her husband nodded, pushing his glasses up. Yeah, she's making it worse, he said quietly. The teenage girl with headphones giggled and whispered to her friend, she's so dramatic. Her friend nodded, twirling her headphone cord. Totally. What a mess. The man with the goofy hat put his book down and crossed his arms. This is ridiculous, he muttered to himself, shaking his head. The kid with the sticky candy looked at his mom and asked, why is she so loud? His mom sighed and patted his head. Some people just like yelling, sweetie, she said, rolling her eyes. But Jamal? He didn't groan. He didn't yell. He didn't even look mad. He just sat there, quiet as a mouse, like none of this bothered him at all. His hands were folded in his lap now, resting on top of his crumpled ticket. He stared straight ahead, not at Karen, not at Mike, not at anyone. Just, waiting. But if you looked close, really, really close, you'd see something. A tiny smirk, tugging at the corners of his lips. It was small, so small you might miss it if you blinked. But it was there. What did it mean? Was he laughing inside? Was he planning something? Karen was still up front, holding the intercom like it was her best friend. She pressed the button again and kept talking. This passenger thinks he can do whatever he wants, she said, her voice crackling through the speakers. But don't worry, we're fixing it. Stay in your seats. She slammed the intercom back into its hook bang, and turned around, her face all scrunched up and grumpy. People groaned again. Oh, come on, the guy in the red shirt said, louder this time. Let's just fly already. The lady with glasses pulled out a magazine and started flipping pages fast, like she was trying to ignore everything. The kid in the back yelled again, I wanna go. His voice was so high it made a few people giggle, even though they were annoyed. Mike was still standing near Jamal, looking lost. He shuffled his feet, his sneakers squeaking on the floor, and glanced at Karen up front. Maybe we should check with someone else, he said, mostly to himself. He looked at Jamal and gave a little shrug, like he was saying, sorry about this, man. Then he walked off, heading toward the front where Karen was muttering to herself. Jamal didn't move. He didn't say a word. But that smirk, it was still there, pulling at his lips like a secret he wasn't ready to tell. And then he did something. Something small, but sneaky. He reached into his pocket, real slow, and pulled out his phone. It was a regular phone, black and shiny, nothing fancy. He held it in his hand, hiding it low so no one would notice. His fingers moved fast, tap, 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 pressing a few buttons. What was he doing? Texting someone? Playing a game? Turning something on? No one knew, because he slid it back into his pocket just as quick, smooth as butter. The lady in the purple scarf saw it, though. She was watching Jamal out of the corner of her eye, sneaky-like. Did you see that? She whispered to her husband, nudging him with her elbow. He looked over, confused. See what? He asked, pushing his glasses up again. He did something with his phone, she said, her voice all hush-hush. Something's up. Her husband frowned. Huh. Maybe he's just bored, he said, but he didn't sound so sure. The teenage girl noticed too. She leaned over to her friend and whispered, he's got a phone out. Think he's calling someone. Her friend shrugged, twirling her headphone cord again. Maybe he's recording this crazy lady, she said, giggling. I would. The man with the goofy hat didn't see it, he was too busy staring at Karen, but the kid with the candy did. Mom, he's got a phone, he said, pointing. His mom shushed him. Mind your own business, she said, but she peeked at Jamal too. Karen didn't see any of it. Nope. She was too busy pacing up front, her shoes clacking back and forth like a clock ticking. She was talking to herself now, muttering stuff like, he's not winning this, and I'll show him who's boss. Her arms were flapping, her ponytail swinging, and she looked like she was ready to explode all over again. The plane stayed stuck. The engines kept humming, but no one was flying anywhere. People were getting antsy now, tapping their feet and checking their watches. How long is this gonna take? The guy in the red shirt grumbled, loud enough for everyone to hear. I've got places to be. The lady with glasses sighed and closed her magazine. This is the worst flight ever, she said to no one. But Jamal? He was cool as a cucumber. He leaned back in his seat, his head resting against the window, like he didn't have a care in the world. That smirk was still there, tiny but growing, like a seed starting to sprout. He tapped his fingers on the armrest, tap, 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 like he was counting down to something. What was he waiting for? What did he do with that phone? Whatever it was, Karen had no idea. She was stomping around, huffing and puffing, thinking she was in charge. But something told me she'd just poked a bear and that bear was about to wake up. The tension was building, like a rubber band stretching tighter and tighter. Everyone could feel it, the passengers, Mike, even the kid in the back still yelling, let's go. Karen thought she had it all under control, but Jamal's smirk said different. He was quiet, sure, but he wasn't weak. Nope. He was watching, waiting, planning. And that phone? That little tap tap tap? It was a clue, a small one, but a big one if you paid attention. The lady in the purple scarf kept sneaking looks at him. He's up to something, she whispered to her husband again. He nodded this time, slow and thoughtful. Yeah. He's too calm, he said. The teenage girl whispered to her friend, bet he's got a secret. Her friend giggled. Oh yeah. This is getting good. Even the kid with the candy was watching now, his gum forgotten, dripping onto his shirt. Karen kept pacing, muttering, clacking. She had no clue what was coming. She thought Jamal was just some guy she could boss around. But that smirk, that phone, that quiet strength, he wasn't just some guy. Nope. He was something else, something bigger. And every second she ranted, every time she yelled, she was digging herself deeper into a hole she couldn't climb out of. The plane stayed stuck, the people stayed grumpy, and the air stayed thick with waiting. What was Jamal up to? What was that tap 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 all about? Stick with me, because this story's heating up, and the little clues are starting to add up to something wild. The plane had been stuck on the tarmac for a while now, 15 whole minutes. That's a long time when you're waiting to fly. The engines were still humming, soft and low, like a sleepy dog snoring. But nothing was happening. No takeoff, no flying, just sitting. People were getting antsy, wiggling in their seats, looking out the windows at the same boring view, big trucks rolling by, workers tossing bags around, and the sun shining bright. Everyone wanted to go, but Karen's big fuss was holding it all up. Inside, the air was thick, like when you know something huge is about to happen but you don't know what. Karen was up front, pacing back and forth, her shoes going clack 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 on the floor. She was muttering to herself, her arms crossed tight, her face all red and sweaty. "He's not getting away with this," she grumbled, loud enough that a few people heard. She thought she was still in charge, still the boss of everything. Oh boy, was she wrong. Jamal was still in seat 12B, right by the window. He hadn't moved an inch since this whole mess started. His hands were resting on his lap, his backpack tucked under the seat, and that tiny smirk was still on his face, like he knew something no one else did. He wasn't yelling or arguing or even looking mad. Nope. He was calm, quiet, cool as a popsicle on a summer day. But that smirk? It was growing, just a little, like a secret trying to peek out. The passengers were watching, waiting, whispering. The lady in the purple scarf across the aisle kept sneaking glances at Jamal, her eyes big and curious. "Something's going to happen," she whispered to her husband, nudging him with her elbow. He nodded slow, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Yeah, he's too chill," he said softly. The teenage girl with headphones leaned over to her friend and giggled. "Bet it's gonna be wild," she said. Her friend nodded fast, twirling her headphone cord. "Oh yeah, this is better than TV." The man with the goofy hat was watching too, his book forgotten on his lap. He tapped his fingers on the armrest, tap like he was excited. The kid with the sticky candy stopped chewing and stared, his mouth open, gum stuck to his chin. "Mom, what's gonna happen?" he asked, his voice all squeaky. His mom patted his head and said, "SHH, just watch, honey." Even the girl with pigtails stopped kicking the seat in front of her, thump, thump, and turned around to peek over the top, her little eyes wide. Mike, the other flight attendant, was standing near the front, looking lost. He kept shifting his feet, his sneakers squeaking, like he didn't know what to do. He tried to help Karen, but she didn't listen, and now he was just waiting like everyone else. The plane was quiet, well, mostly. You could hear Karen's muttering and the engines humming, but no one was talking loud anymore. They were all holding their breath, like when you're about to blow out birthday candles and make a wish. And then it happened. The cockpit door, the one up front where the pilots sit, swung open with a loud creak. Out stepped the captain. He was a tall guy, really tall, like he could touch the ceiling if he wanted. He had a serious face, all straight lines and no smiles, like a teacher about to give a big test. His uniform was dark blue, with shiny gold stripes on the shoulders, and his hat was tucked under his arm. He looked important, like someone you don't mess with. When he stepped out, everyone froze. Even Karen stopped pacing for a second, her mouth half open. The captain didn't stop to chat. Nope. He marched straight down the aisle, his big shoes thumping on the floor, thump, thump, thump like a drum beat. His eyes were locked ahead, and he didn't look left or right. People turned their heads to watch him go, their necks craning like giraffes. Where was he headed? Why was he coming out? Was someone in trouble? He stopped right at row 12, Jamal's row. Everyone held their breath, like the air got sucked out of the plane. The lady in the purple scarf grabbed her husband's arm, her fingers digging in. "Oh no," she whispered. The teenage girl whispered, "He's busted," to her friend, who shook her head. "Nah, wait for it." The man with the goofy hat sat up straight, his hat tipping a little. The kid with the candy whispered, "Is he gonna get yelled at?" His mom didn't answer, she was too busy watching. Karen saw the captain and rushed over, her shoes clacking fast. She got to row 12 just as he did, her face all smug, like she thought he was there to help her. Finally, she said, loud and bossy, "Captain, this guy won't move. He's causing trouble." You need to, but the captain didn't even look at her. Nope. He held up one hand, like a stop sign, and said, "Step aside." His voice was deep and firm, like a big bell ringing. Karen blinked, her mouth flapping open and shut like a fish. "What?" she squeaked, but she stepped back anyway, her arms dropping to her sides. She wasn't used to being told what to do, she was the one who told people what to do. But the captain wasn't playing. He turned away from her and faced Jamal, who was still sitting there, calm and quiet, that smirk still on his lips. Everyone leaned forward, their eyes huge. Was Jamal in trouble? Was the captain going to yell at him? Drag him off the plane? The air was so tense you could bounce a ball on it. The lady in the purple scarf held her breath, her scarf slipping off one shoulder. The teenage girl whispered, "Here it comes." The kid with the candy clutched his mom's hand, his gum falling onto his lap splat. But then wait for it, something amazing happened. The captain didn't yell. He didn't frown. He didn't grab Jamal. Nope. He stuck out his hand, big and strong, and shook Jamal's hand. "Yep, you heard me right, a handshake." "Mr. Carter," he said, loud and clear so everyone could hear, "sorry for the mix-up. We're honored to have you on board." "What?" The plane went nuts? Karen's jaw dropped so low it practically hit the floor. Her eyes bugged out, like two big marbles, and she made a little choking sound, "Gurk." The passengers gasped, all at once, like a big whoosh of air. "Huh," went the lady in the purple scarf, her hands flying to her mouth. "No way," shouted the teenage girl, clapping her hands. Her friend laughed, "I knew it." The man with the goofy hat grinned, his hat falling crooked. The kid with the candy yelled, "Whoa," and his mom just stared, her mouth open. Jamal shook the captain's hand, his smirk turning into a small, real smile. He didn't say anything yet, just nodded, calm as ever. But the captain wasn't done. "Oh no." He turned to the whole plane, his deep voice filling the air. "Folks," he said, loud and strong, "this is Jamal Carter. He's not just any passenger. He's the airline's new safety inspector. Started today." Boom. There it was, the big secret, out in the open. The plane exploded not with fire, but with noise. People gasped again, louder this time. "A safety inspector," the lady in the purple scarf squealed, turning to her husband. "Did you hear that?" He nodded, his glasses slipping down. "Unbelievable," he said. The teenage girl shouted, "That's so cool." Her friend cheered, "Take that, Karen." The man with the goofy hat clapped his hands, clap, clap, like he was at a show. The kid with the candy jumped up in his seat, "He's a boss." His mom pulled him down, but she was smiling too. Karen. She looked like she'd been hit by a truck. Her face went from red to white, like all the color drained out. Her hands shook a little, and she took a step back, bumping into Mike, who was standing there with his mouth open too. What?" she stammered, her voice all tiny now. "Safety inspector." She blinked fast, like she couldn't believe it. The captain kept talking, his voice steady. "Mr. Carter's job is to check if we're doing things right," he said. "He makes sure the crew follows the rules and keeps everyone safe." He looked at Karen then, his serious face getting even more serious. "And it looks like we've got some work to do." Oh snap. That was it, Karen was toast. The passengers figured it out fast. Jamal wasn't some random guy causing trouble. Nope. He was the one watching the trouble, testing the crew, seeing if they'd pass or fail. And Karen? She'd just failed big time. She'd yelled at him, bossed him around, and said mean things, all while he was quietly doing his job. That phone he tapped earlier? Maybe he was taking notes, or telling someone what was happening. Whatever it was, he'd caught her red-handed. The lady in the purple scarf started clapping, clap, 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 and her husband joined in. "Good for him," she said, loud and happy. The teenage girl cheered, "Yeah, Jamal." Her friend pumped her fist, "Karen's done." The man with the goofy hat laughed, a big belly laugh, and said, "She walked right into that." The kid with the candy bounced in his seat, "He tricked her." His mom nodded, grinning. "He sure did." Karen stood there, frozen, her arms hanging limp. She tried to talk, I didn't know. But it came out all squeaky and weak. Her ponytail drooped, like it was sad too. Mike stepped away from her, his hands up, like he didn't want to get blamed. The captain didn't even look at her now. He was still shaking Jamal's hand, giving him a little nod, like they were buddies. Jamal finally spoke, his voice calm and smooth. "Thanks, Captain," he said, simple as that. He let go of the handshake and leaned back in his seat, that smirk back on his face. He didn't gloat or cheer or rub it in. Nope. He just sat there, cool and quiet, like he'd known this was coming all along. The plane was buzzing now, not with engines, but with people. Everyone was talking, laughing, clapping. "He's awesome," the teenage girl said, high-fiving her friend. "Best twist ever," her friend agreed. The lady in the purple scarf turned to her husband again. "She deserves this," she said, nodding toward Karen. He smiled. "Oh yeah. Big lesson." The kid with the candy looked at Jamal like he was a superhero. "Can I be a safety inspector?" he asked his mom. She laughed. "Maybe one day," she said. Even the girl with pigtails peeked over her seat again, grinning at Jamal. "You're cool," she shouted, and her mom didn't shush her this time. Karen's big moment was over. She'd yelled and stomped and thought she was the boss, but Jamal was the real boss all along. That secret he'd been hiding? It was out now, and it was huge. He wasn't just some guy with a ticket, he was the one making sure the plane was safe, the crew was good, and the rules were followed. And Karen? She'd just shown everyone she wasn't good at her job. Oops. The captain gave Jamal one last nod, then turned to walk back to the cockpit. The passengers kept buzzing, their voices loud and happy. Karen stood there, alone, her face white, her hands shaking. She'd poked the bear, and the bear had won. What a twist. What a reveal. The plane wasn't moving yet, but the story sure was, and it was about to get even better. The plane was buzzing like a beehive after the captain dropped the big news Jamal was the safety inspector. Everyone was talking, laughing, and staring at Karen, who was still standing there, frozen like a popsicle. Her big moment had crashed and burned, and now she was in deep trouble. Oh boy, you should have seen her face. Karen's cheeks turned red, super red, like a ripe tomato you'd pick from a garden. Her eyes were wide, and her mouth flapped open and shut, like a fish out of water. I didn't know," she stammered, her voice all squeaky and shaky. She waved her hands in front of her, like she was trying to erase what just happened. "I swear, I didn't know he was an inspector," she said again, louder this time, looking around like someone might jump up and save her. "But the captain? He wasn't buying it?" "Nope." He stood there, tall and serious, his arms crossed over his chest. His face was hard, like a rock, and his eyes stared right through Karen. "You don't treat anyone like that, period," he said, his voice deep and strong, like thunder rolling over the sky. "Doesn't matter who they are, passenger, inspector, anyone. You were rude. You were wrong. Pack your stuff. You're done." "Whoa. Done. Done like, fired?" "Yep, that's exactly what he meant." Karen's face went from red to white in 2 seconds flat, like someone sucked all the color out with a straw. Her hands dropped to her sides, and she blinked fast, like she couldn't believe it. What?" she squeaked, so quiet now you could barely hear her. "Done? You can't, Captain, wait." But he didn't wait. He just shook his head, slow and firm, and pointed toward the front of the plane. "Go," he said. One word, short and sharp, like a door slamming shut. The passengers didn't wait either, they cheered. Oh man, it was loud. Clapping, whooping, laughing all at once, like a big party starting right there in the aisle. "Yeah," shouted the teenage girl with headphones, pumping her fist in the air. Her friend clapped her hands, clap, 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 and yelled, "Bye-bye, Karen." The lady in the purple scarf across from Jamal stood up a little in her seat, clapping so hard her scarf fell off her shoulder. "Good riddance," she called out, smiling big. Her husband nodded, pushing his glasses up, and clapped too. "She earned that," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The man with the goofy hat laughed, a big, happy laugh, and slapped his knee. "Told ya she was done," he said, his hat tipping sideways. The kid with the sticky candy jumped up and down in his seat, his gum falling onto the floor splat. "She's outta here," he cheered, waving his little arms. His mom smiled and ruffled his hair. "Serves her right," she said, clapping along. Even the girl with pigtails peeked over her seat, giggling, and shouted, "See ya, mean lady." Her mom laughed and didn't shush her this time. Karen looked around, her eyes darting from face to face, like she was hoping someone would say, "Wait, it's a joke." But no one did. Nope. They just kept cheering, clapping, and smiling, happy to see her go. She swallowed hard, her throat bobbing, and took a shaky step back. Her hands fumbled for her bag, a little blue one she'd left up front, and she grabbed it quick, clutching it to her chest like a shield. Her ponytail drooped, her shoulders slumped, and she started walking, well, more like slinking toward the door. Every step she took, people cheered louder. "Woohoo," went the guy in the red shirt a few rows up, clapping like he was at a ball game. "Don't come back," yelled the lady with glasses, waving her magazine in the air. Karen's shoes didn't clack anymore, they shuffled, soft and slow, like she was too tired to fight. She kept her head down, her face hidden, and moved toward the front where the big door was still open. The whole plane watched her go, and when she finally stepped off, poof, gone, the cheers got even bigger. "Yes. Finally. Good job, Captain." People were so happy they couldn't sit still. Jamal, though. He stayed chill. Super chill. He was still in seat 12B, leaning back by the window, his hands resting easy on his lap. That smirk was gone now, replaced by a small, quiet smile, like he was happy but didn't need to show off about it. He looked at the captain and gave a little nod, just a quick tilt of his head, like they were on the same team. "Let's get this flight moving," he said, his voice calm and smooth, like a cool breeze on a hot day. The captain nodded back, a tiny smile tugging at his serious face. "You got it, Mr. Carter," he said. He turned around, his big shoes thumping again, thump, thump, and marched back to the cockpit. The door shut behind him with a loud click, and just like that, the engines roared to life. Not a soft hum anymore, oh no, this was a big, loud roar, like a lion waking up. The plane shook a little, the seats rumbling under everyone, and people clapped again, even louder than before. "Finally," shouted the guy in the red shirt, throwing his hands up. "We're going." The lady with glasses closed her magazine and smiled, leaning back in her seat. "About time," she said. The kid in the back, the one who'd yelled "hurry up" earlier, squealed, "Yay, we're flying." His high voice made everyone laugh, and the whole plane felt lighter, like a big weight was gone. A lady sitting right behind Jamal leaned over the seat, her face all smiley. She had short brown hair and a green shirt, and she looked at him like he was a movie star. "You're awesome," she whispered, loud enough for him to hear but quiet like a secret. Jamal turned his head a little, that small smile still on his face, and nodded at her. "Thanks," he said, soft and simple. He didn't brag or make a big deal, he just turned back to the window, watching the ground start to move as the plane rolled forward. The cheering slowed down, but the happy buzz didn't stop. People were talking fast, their voices mixing together like a big, excited song. "He's the safety guy," the teenage girl said to her friend, her eyes wide. "So cool." Her friend nodded, twirling her headphone cord. Karen didn't see that coming, she giggled. The lady in the purple scarf turned to her husband again. "He handled that so well," she said, fixing her scarf. "Real class." Her husband grinned. "Yep." She dug her own grave. The man with the goofy hat leaned back, his hat falling over one eye. "Best flight ever," he said to himself, chuckling. The kid with the candy looked at Jamal, stars in his eyes. "Mom, he's like a superhero," he said, bouncing again. His mom laughed. "He kinda is, huh," she said, wiping the gum off his shirt. The girl with pigtails giggled and whispered to her mom, "He tricked her good." Her mom nodded, smiling big. "Sure did, sweetie." The plane kept rolling, picking up speed now. Outside, the tarmac zoomed by gray pavement, yellow lines, little trucks getting smaller and smaller. The engines roared louder, and then whoosh, the plane lifted off the ground. Everyone felt it, that little lurch in their stomachs as the wheels left the tarmac and the sky took over. "We're up," shouted the kid in the back, clapping his hands. People laughed and settled into their seats, the happy buzz turning into a comfy hum. Jamal looked out the window, watching the ground fall away. The sun was still shining, bouncing off the wings, and the clouds were getting closer. He didn't say much, just leaned back, his smile fading into a calm, peaceful look. He didn't need to say anything. Everyone knew he was the hero of Flight 247. He'd stayed cool, let Karen mess up, and showed who was really in charge, all without yelling or making a fuss. That's how you do it. Up front, where Karen used to be, Mike was scurrying around, picking up her bag and fixing things. He looked nervous, like he didn't want to get in trouble too. Sorry about all that, folks, he called out, his voice wobbly. We're good now. A few people laughed, and the guy in the red shirt yelled, yeah, thanks to Jamal. More claps followed, and Mike just nodded, his face red. By the time the plane was high in the sky, flying smooth and steady, Jamal was everyone's favorite person. The lady behind him kept sneaking peeks, smiling every time. The teenage girl whispered to her friend, he's the best. Her friend nodded. Total legend. The lady in the purple scarf folded her hands in her lap, looking proud, like she'd helped somehow. Justice, she said to her husband. He grinned. Yep, served hot. The man with the goofy hat pulled his hat down low, ready for a nap, but he was still smiling. The kid with the candy kept talking about Jamal, he's so cool, Mom. His mom agreed, he sure is. The girl with pigtails drew a picture on her napkin, a stick figure with a cape, and showed her mom. That's him, she said, pointing at Jamal. Her mom laughed. Perfect. And Karen? Well, she was gone off the plane, out of the sky, probably sitting somewhere rethinking her whole life. Maybe she was on the ground, kicking a rock, wondering how it all went so wrong. She'd yelled at the wrong guy, picked the wrong fight, and now she was done. No more blue uniform, no more name tag, no more bossing people around. She'd learned the hard way, don't mess with someone who's got a secret up their sleeve. The plane flew on, the clouds fluffy and white outside the windows. Everyone was happy, chatting, laughing, relaxing. Jamal stayed quiet, watching the sky, his job done for now. He'd made the flight safe, shown Karen up, and gotten the plane moving all in one day. What a start to being a safety inspector. Flight 247 was his show, and he'd won without even trying hard. The captain's voice crackled over the speakers. Folks, we're cruising now. Thanks for your patience. People cheered again, softer this time. Okay, wow, what a ride, right? We just went through this wild story about Jamal and Karen on Flight 247, and now it's time to sit back and think about what it all means. Every story has a little lesson hiding in it, like a treasure you find after digging through the sand. So, what's the takeaway from this one? What's the big idea we can carry with us? Let's figure it out together. Here's the thing, sometimes, the person you think is small or weak or not important turns out to be the one running the show. Yep, just like Jamal. He looked like any regular guy, brown jacket, backpack, munching pretzels by the window. No one thought he was special. Karen sure didn't. She saw him sitting there and figured he was just some guy she could boss around. Move, she yelled. You don't belong here, she said. She thought she was the big deal, the one with all the power, because she had that blue uniform and that shiny name tag. But guess what? She was so wrong. Jamal wasn't just some guy. He was the safety inspector, the one checking if everyone was doing their job right. He had the real power, quiet and sneaky, like a superhero hiding in plain sight. He didn't need to yell or stomp or wave his arms. Nope. He just sat there, cool and calm, letting Karen dig her own hole. And when the captain came out, bam, the truth hit like a thunderclap. Jamal was the one calling the shots all along, and Karen didn't even see it coming. That's the first big lesson, don't judge people by how they look or act. You might think someone's weak because they're quiet, or small because they don't brag, but they could be stronger than you know. Like Jamal. He didn't fight back with loud words or mean looks. He just waited, watched, and let the truth do the talking. And when it did, oh boy, it was awesome. So next time you see someone who seems ordinary, think twice. They might be hiding something amazing, like a secret power or a cool job or a big idea. Now, flip it around. The ones who act all high and mighty? The ones who strut around like they own the place? They're usually the first to trip and fall. Yep, that's Karen. She marched up and down the aisle clack, clack, clack yelling at Jamal, pointing her finger, telling everyone she was in charge. I know how this works, she said. I'm the boss here. She thought she was so big, so important, like a queen on a throne. But what happened? She crashed hard. The captain told her, "You're done," and she slinked off the plane with her bag, her head down, her ponytail drooping. All that big talk didn't save her, it just made her fall faster. That's the second lesson: acting bossy doesn't make you strong. Being loud or mean doesn't mean you're right. Karen thought she could push people around and get her way, but it backfired big time. She didn't stop to listen or check Jamal's ticket or think maybe she was wrong. Nope. She just kept going, like a runaway train, until crash, she hit a wall. The people who act like they're the best? They're often the ones who mess up the most, because they don't see what's really going on. So, what can we take from this? Be like Jamal, not Karen. Stay calm, be smart, and don't judge people too fast. You don't need to yell or act big to be strong, you just need to do what's right and let the truth shine. Jamal didn't brag about being the safety inspector. He didn't wave a sign that said, "I'm important." He just did his job, quiet and steady, and when the time came, everyone saw how awesome he was. That's real power, power that surprises you, power that lasts. Think about your own life for a second. Have you ever seen someone who seemed small or shy turn out to be super cool? Maybe a kid at school who doesn't talk much but wins the spelling bee. Or a friend who's quiet but runs the fastest in gym class. Those are the Jamals of the world. They don't need to show off, they just do their thing, and bam, they shine. And the loud kids who boss everyone around? Like the one who always yells in line or brags about their toys. They're the Karens, big talk, but they trip over their own feet. Here's a little story to help you see it. Imagine a playground. There's this one kid, Tommy, who's always shouting, "I'm the king of the swings." He pushes other kids out of the way and swings super high, laughing loud so everyone looks at him. Everyone thinks he's the toughest, the coolest. But then there's Sarah, a quiet girl who sits on the bench, reading a book. No one notices her much, she's just there, small and still. One day, the teacher says, "We need someone to help fix the swings, they're broken." Tommy brags, "I can do it," but he doesn't know how. Sarah puts down her book, walks over, and fixes them in 5 minutes. Turns out, she's super good at building stuff. Everyone cheers for her, and Tommy just stands there, looking silly. See? Sarah's the Jamal, quiet but strong. Tommy's the Karen, loud but empty. That's how life works sometimes. The loudest person in the room isn't always the smartest or the best. The quiet one, the one you don't notice at first, might be the real hero. So don't be quick to think you know who's who. Watch, listen, and give people a chance. You might be surprised. And hey, this isn't just about planes or inspectors, it's about you, too. You don't have to be the loudest kid in class to be awesome. You don't have to push people around to be strong. You can be like Jamal, calm, kind, and ready for your moment. Maybe you're good at drawing, or helping friends, or solving problems. You don't need to shout about it. Just keep doing your thing, and when the time's right, everyone will see how great you are. Let's think about Karen for a minute, too. She messed up, big time. She lost her job, walked off the plane, and probably felt pretty bad. But even she can learn something. Maybe she's sitting somewhere right now, thinking, "Wow, I was mean. I should have been nicer." Maybe she'll try again, be better, listen more. Everyone can change, even the Karens of the world. That's another lesson: mistakes happen, but they can teach you stuff if you let them. So, what's the big takeaway? Be patient, be kind, and don't judge too fast. The person you think is nothing might be everything. And the ones who act like they're everything? They might fall flat. Life's full of surprises, like a box of chocolates, you don't know what's inside till you bite in. Jamal showed us that, and Karen learned it the hard way. Thanks for sticking with me through this crazy story. I had so much fun telling it to you. What did you think of Jamal's comeback? Wasn't it awesome how he stayed cool and turned it all around? Drop a comment below, I'd love to hear what you think. Did you cheer when Karen got fired? Did you guess Jamal's secret? Tell me everything, I'm super curious. And hey, next time you're on a plane or anywhere, really keep an eye out. Look at the people around you. The quiet guy in the corner? He might be a hero. The loud one bossing everyone? Maybe not so tough. You never know who's really in charge, who's got a secret waiting to pop out. Life's like that, full of twists and turns, just like Flight 247. So stay ready, stay nice, and watch for the surprises. You might be the next Jamal, making things right without even trying hard. See you in the next story, okay? I've got more fun stuff to share, more wild adventures to tell. Stick around, because you're awesome, and I can't wait to hang out with you again. Bye for now, keep being your amazing self, tulling in for the ride. Jamal's small smile came back, just for a second, as he looked out at the clouds. He was the hero, and everyone knew it. Karen was history, and justice? Oh, it was served big time.